Good afternoon to everybody. We'd like to thank Jeff and Hilary Dritz for sponsoring this short Torah. It's Le'ilu Nishmat Hilary's father, Alexander Ben Tzvi, Zichrono Livracha. It's actually a big privilege for me to say these Divrei Torah because I've known the Dritzes for a very long time. I had the privilege and the honor to teach some of their children when I was back in Yeshiva College in South Africa. So Al Kol Panim want to wish Hilary a Chayim Arukim and Jeff, and that her father's neshama should have an aliyah began Eden. The Torah tells us that after the dramatic events of Kriyat Yam Suf, all good and excellent things, dramatic things, have to come to an end, and the Jewish people are then continuing their march into the desert, but towards Eretz Yisrael, and they come to they travel south, basically by the Red Sea, the Gulf of Suez, and they come to a place Marah, and in Marah there's no water. There is a little bit of water, but it's brackish water. It's water which is very bitter and therefore actually undrinkable. You can't drink the water, and that's why they called it Marah. So the people complained to Moshe, and Hashem says, Vayorehu eitz. That's a matter of interpretation, what exactly that verb means, Vayorehu. The straightforward explanation of most of the Mepharshim is that he showed him a tree, and Moshe took the tree, he cast it into the water, and the water then became sweetened and drinkable. There's a lot of Mepharshim. I'll just mention a couple of them, but then dwell on one. Some people say that when it says that Moshe Rabbeinu took the tree, and the tree itself was bitter, and he cast it into the waters. So the Netziv says what Hashem showed Moshe was that in the world there is the principle of compensation. In other words, the water is bitter, and then Hashem takes something bitter, and what he does is he makes it sweet. So the idea is that people are suffering, they are compensated in another way. What's a very straightforward example. Let's say, God forbid, a person is blind, so then he's got his sense of hearing becomes very acute. That's like one of the principles of compensation. It's not only in the physiological way, area, but also in the spiritual area. That's like a spiritual law. So, for example, then the Tziv says, let's say Leah was of the two wives of Yaakov, she was loved less. So Hashem then used this principle, spiritual law of compensation, that she gave birth to Yaakov's children before his wife, who he loved more, who was Raphael. So that's the first idea. On the other extreme, there's a lot of the Mepharshim say that Hashem was teaching Moshe Rabbeinu, and he in turn was teaching the Jewish people that they're now going into the desert, and he's teaching them like survival techniques, how one copes in the desert. And he showed them that, there's this type of tree, and this type of tree has got the properties that it can sweeten waters. So that's the other extreme. And then there's something which the Ramban says is that, quoting from the Mechilta, that the tree was bitter, and Hashem showed him. Now the word Vayorehu is written without an aleph. With an aleph, it means Hashem showed him. Vayorei without an aleph, like we say the word Torah, it means an instruction. Hashem sort of taught Moshe Rabbeinu that how he operates in the world. He operates in the world that he takes bitter things in order to and put them into bitter tree, to put it into a bitter water. And that's the way Hashem operates in the world. In other words, it's like a miraculous way in which Hashem uses bitter things to create bitter things. He doesn't like take sugar and make the coffee less bitter or strong. He uses bitter against bitter, making it sweet. Rav Tzadok HaKohen, he took this concept and he took the spiritual principle, and he brought it more to a practical level, something that maybe that we could use. And he said, let me explain to you this principle in psychological terms. He says, people have got weaknesses. And many times that in those areas of weaknesses, they find that they're constantly falling. They find that the Yetzer Hara always attacks them in a certain area of their life. So he says that's could be described as the bitter part of our personality, the part of our personality which we would wish that it would be more wholesome, it would be sweeter. It wouldn't cause us such bitterness and such strife and like struggling with that type of weakness. But then the principle of bitterness, curing bitterness, Tzadok says that that's an indication from Hashem that in that very area where the Yetzer Hara attacks a person constantly and shows up his weakness, that's exactly Hashem's message telling a person that in that very area he can be completely clean. He can be completely like whole. And that is, he says, is the principle of a person, giving a person a sense of optimism, a sense of like happiness, that a person should know that where the whole time he's attacked, that's where he can be actually a person who is complete, a person who is whole, a person who's shalem in that very area. It's Hashem's indicating that, of course, that if the Yetzer Hara is attacking, it means that there's something to attack. There's something, so to speak, that the Yetzer Hara is in inverted commas afraid of, and that's why he wants a person to fall in that area. But that very battle is the indication that they're a person, that's where he can rise. That's where he can be complete. So we've taken this principle, Rav Tzadok has taken this principle. It's a metaphysical law. But when we hear these metaphysical laws, right, how do we apply it to us? So that's what Rav Tzadok does. That the whole Inyan that Moshe Rabbeinu showed the Jewish people as they're going into the desert, as they're now going to have to contend under harsh conditions, he's telling them not only survival skills in a physical way, but also spiritual survival. How in one's life does one survive? It's I just want to add on that's the Ramban says exactly what happened on the in the case also of the snake, when the Jewish people spoke Lashon Hara against Moshe towards just before they came into Eretz Yisrael, and Hashem sent the snakes. And what was their cure? Moshe Rabbeinu made a copper snake. People looked at the copper snake, and that was the cure. That's this idea that the Ramban and the Torah and Rav Tzadok are speaking about, that never to fall, always to have hope, that the place where, as we said, we are attacked, that's exactly the indication that that's where we're going to be complete. Shabbat Shalom to everybody. Kol Tov.